Good morning, Spain. I hope you're receiving me in Spain. Happy anniversary, British Council Spain, on the occasion of your 70th anniversary of your operations in Spain. Can I hear a loud cheer from Barcelona, Valencia? That's great. Madrid. Wow. Bilbao. And so on. There's 14 centres, apparently, I'm told, who are taking part in this innovative live stream experience. I really hope that you're with us and that you can hear and see loud and clear. I'm speaking to you from Osaka in Japan. When this idea was first mooted that I do the opening plenary for the conference, I did point out to Martin Goosey that I would be in Japan. We said, you know, technology, anything is achievable, we can do it. And here we are doing it, and I just hope it is achievable. I would like to thank, at this point, all the people who have been involved at both ends in making sure that the technology works, and also to thank the venue, the Osaka Jogakuin College, the Osaka Jolt, the Nara Jolt, the Kobe Jolt, the organizations that have contributed to bringing together the people in the room. That you can't see that in Spain, but we have a kind of studio audience here to make the whole event seem more lifelike. So when you hear laughter in a minute, it's not canned laughter, it's real laughter. That's the only laugh you'll get. Without further ado, let me tell you a little bit about what I'm going to talk about. The presentation will take approximately 40 minutes, I'm imagining, and I'm hoping that we'll have audience participation in the form of questions from the audience here in Japan. It's not going to be possible to field questions from you lot in Spain, although there is talk of creating a discussion list subsequently where we can take part talking about the issues raised in some later forum. The topic is the secret history of methods. And just as a little introduction, one of the great pleasures of my work, which involves a lot of traveling, a lot of living out of suitcases and a lot of very small hotel rooms in Japan, and empty minibars, is the fact that, of course, I get out and I meet people and I see wonderful places. I mean, I've had a fantastic experience here in the last 10 days in Japan, unforgettable. Not just the places I've visited, but the people I've met, the talks I've attended, etc. So that's one of the great perks of this job. Another one, for me, is the chance to get off and visit second-hand bookshops wherever I go. And this is a part of a hobby that I've been cultivating. It started probably about 10, 15 years ago on a trip to Brazil, in fact, where I just happened to stumble across a street full of second-hand bookshops. And a lot of them are full of old methodologies, old course books, old dictionaries, old grammars, etc., dating from sometimes back as far as the 19th century. And that dirt, nobody wants these things, of course, so they practically give them away. And I've assembled a collection over the years, and it's that's what I want to use, in a sense, to frame this discussion of methods and methodology. So, for example, last year I was in Malta for the first time, or the second time, in fact, but I was in the fabulously beautiful city of Valletta, and I knew that somewhere in there would be a second-hand bookshop which would have a gem in it. It took me a long time of wandering the back streets of Valletta to find it, but I finally found this shop, which was a bookshop. Now it's less a bookshop than a sort of tourist item shop, but sure enough, they had a shelf tucked away in a corner, covered in dust, where they had some old English language textbooks. They were mostly readers, a few dictionaries, but they did have a number of copies of this book, and you can tell by the design of it that it's dated, we're talking here, there was no date in the book, but it's probably sort of 40s, 50s, or even earlier. The Basic Way to Teach to English. Good common sense title, too. And I was delighted to find this, not least because when I opened it up, I found there were some wonderful pieces of authentic teaching language from this period with illustrations to match. So here we have, for example, a sequence in the book where two men whose relationship is not very clear, but they're obviously having trouble identifying parts of their own anatomy, so they're helping each other out. That is your mouth, you know. This is my mouth. And some basic kind of, I don't know, it looks like dance steps. My hand is on my knee, your finger is on your arm. I put my foot on your foot. Excuse me, your finger is on my nose. You can't help but imagine a context for this. The Tokyo subway might be one. Excuse me. It gets better, in fact. You take your hand off my arm. My finger's on my chin. I take my foot off your head. Your hand is on your knee. Look, he's on the ground. You put your finger on your leg. I take my hand on my face, and so on. I love it. I love it. I love it. It tells us a lot about where we've been. I love the graphic. Why the suits? I mean, you could imagine that you could contextualize this if they were in a gym. You put them in trainers, but the suits. I mean, it's so bizarre. But this is a thing that gives me a great deal of delight in my lonely hotel rooms. But also, it does have a serious purpose, which is to remind us about where we've been and perhaps where we're going in terms of materials, language, etc. This was no shame in those days to use completely inauthentic language like this for pedagogical purposes, clearly. And clearly, people did learn English by saying things like, you put your finger on your leg, etc. Now, this is a photo of a part of the shelf of my library. We've got, those of you who can read the spines, some of the titles alone of these books are marvelous, that they're so sort of unassuming. Interesting English, for example, the one in blue. You never get a book now called Interesting English. It'll have to be fabulous English or marvelous English, but interesting English, not likely. There's another one there next to Interesting English called I Am Learning English. This is a book from Romania. I Am Learning English is book 1 of a series. Book 2 is called I'm Still Learning English. I made that up, but we've got English in English as opposed to English in Japanese or English in French or English in German. And some of these go back, as I say, right back to the 19th century. The design alone is really fun. I mean, just looking at how books have changed over the years. So that was the Berlitz method course at the turn of the 20th century. Very, very plain cover. Became a little bit more jazzy by mid-century, and then became pictorial by the end of the century. That's obviously a dated picture. But the content is basically the same. The design, of course, has changed. And looking at some of these other ones just randomly from the collection, the design, in a sense, almost reflects the methodology. So you've got books from the 40s, like Look and Speak, and then moving in, which is sort of direct method-y kind of books, moving into the audiolingual period of the 60s, where you've got here a very evocative graphic of the period. And I like the little detail of the phonograph there, where listening and reading the content of the course. So we have technology makes an impact. This standard course, the Eckersley, was around for many years, and very, very standard kind of educational publishing design. A couple of others. This one comes from Georgia, and it's what I'd call zero design. I mean, but it's something rather attractive about its starkness. And this one I found recently in Barcelona, and it was published during the period, about 1934, just before the Civil War, during the sort of Second Republic, and there's the iconography of socialist art, as progress, and the associations with English are very rich, and it's very dated. And those associations you can see, too, coming again and again and again. However far back you go, English is associated with the people who invented it, as it were, and these iconic architectural representations of English. The Tower Bridge there in the background. This one, of course, no doubt about that. And if you probably can't see, but in the middle of the Union Jack, there's a bowler hat and a moustache and a monocle, that kind of stereotypical view of the English speaker. This one, again, the Union Jack, the Royal Seal of Approval. This is the course that the Queen herself learnt English from, presumably. Again, the bowler hat. We're moving into the 70s and 80s here. And this is an interesting one. This comes from a course, in fact, which is published just within the last 3 or 4 years by a leading Spanish newspaper. And it features the classic telephone box, which you hardly ever see now in England, but they still felt this is the way to sell English through this kind of, ignoring the fact that, of course, English no longer belongs to the people in the... I shouldn't say this to the British Council, but it no longer belongs to you. The titles, again, of the books, this was one I found in Portugal. I love this kind of upbeat kind of... Here's another one from Germany, Laugh and Be Merry. Modern English book. But this one, by contrast, from Argentina, Toil and Chat in English. Realistically recognizing that it's not all fun. That I kind of like the realism of that. I found long-playing records in my research. So this is a 50s or 60s course from the States. And it's interesting that the hype that goes with it is not that different than you read on the back of any new course book series now. A new tested method that simplifies language study, enables anyone to learn English quickly and easily. If you open up these books, it's also interesting the graphics of how the view of the classroom or the teacher has developed over the years. So this is a very old course where we get the classic, teacher raised above the students on the dais, the boys being very studious, sitting in their rows, the map on the wall, etc. And that kind of imagery is perpetuated constantly in these books, certainly those at the beginning of the last century. So this is an interesting juxtaposition. This is from the same course, so the text is the same, but the graphics change. So there we have the teacher, the besuited teacher, male, of course, at the blackboard, doing what teachers do. And here is a slightly more modern version in the same series, a slightly more trendy teacher, more friendly, but still wearing a suit and tie. The teacher, of course, was caricatured in many books. Here's the caricature of the teacher. I am the master. I am not the mistress. I am big. I'm a man. You're not big. You are small. You're not a man. You're a child, etc. This is from a course, I think the Romanian course. More recently, or moving on, we get the advent of technology in the classroom. I love this picture. See how motivated the 3 students look. It's the tape recorder that put them off. And I love the teacher. I am standing. Am I standing, Dick? Yes, you are. Where am I? You're standing around, so on and so on. So that is, again, very, very much of its period. All, again, male teachers. The women teachers didn't make an appearance except when teaching primary level. And this is clearly a course from the 50s or 60s. And this one, a little bit later, Sarah Palin as English teacher. And just for my audience here in Japan, this is one I found last year. In fact, I found this wonderful area in Tokyo of second-hand bookshops, some of which specialize in English language books, and some of which specialize in linguistics books. They're a fantastic collection of books. I found this on my visit last year. So this is from a book, Saito, is it? A book that I think was very popular, again, the turn of the last century. Very few graphics in it, but the dialogues, this is the present perfect section. So, have you a horse? Yes, I have bought one. Have you a bicycle? No, I have sold my bicycle. That's why I bought the horse. And then I like part 2. What have you done with your old gun? I've lent it to a friend, as one does with one old gun. It's a great sentence to learn the present perfect with. What have you done with your dog? I have lost it. It has been